It was fire, and so I'll take that. I'll take that as a win. It was a
So are you
okay? I'm learning how to be a cook.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Midwest Chicana Podcast. I am so excited for this segment. We have an amazing co-host, Christina. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Thank you for coming back and being a part of this segment again. I love having you as a co-host.
It's my pleasure. I'm super excited.
And we have an amazing guest today. We have a phenomenal artist, Taj. I want to make sure I say that right. So sorry. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, doing great. Anytime I can find myself breathing on this side of COVID, I feel pretty good.
That's exactly true. That's the best statement right there. So we're going to be speaking to you tonight about your wonderful, amazing art that you do, how you became an artist, and you are also planning on working with the Latino Arts Foundation and mentees in a way of scholarships, learning how to navigate through that, and also in regards to just being an artist and how to find the right college and that type of atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, it was something that I've been an artist my whole life. It was, an easy decision for me when it came to what I wanted to do, and I really had the opportunities early to apply for tons of different scholarships, find the right types of schools to work with before I went to college. Once I was there, figured out how to work with the curriculum to, fit what I wanted to do. And then afterwards, it's a very different world out there, regardless of if you go to college or if you're a self-taught artist. Making your way isn't really anything that there's a roadmap for. So you just kind of have to, find out what works and find out what's out there.
Absolutely agree. So let's get started. Let's talk about you. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do and your journey.
So I was born and raised right around DC, and I spent, all the early parts of my life there until I moved to Kansas City to attend the Kansas City Art Institute. But really, before I got out here and decided to stay, I knew I wanted to go into art, and I knew that there were tons of different schools around the country that were really good at teaching, had a lot of different opportunities for, whatever I ended up wanting to do. And at the time, I knew I wanted to do something with artwork, but I wasn't quite sure what. I was lucky enough to get into an art program that I could spend half a day in high school going to that art program to study and create my portfolio. While I would have to go to take night classes to make up for the time that I was lost, it didn't matter to me. I knew that this is really what mattered, and all I wanted to do was get my portfolio together. And one of the things I learned really early was, if you have the right portfolio, if you find the right places to apply, a lot of doors will open up for you that just really are ready and waiting, but the opportunities aren't kind of out there unless you look. So yeah, I found several different scholarship programs. I was lucky enough to get honorable mention in the presidential scholarship, which pretty much opened the door for just about any school I wanted to go to. And when it came down to it, the Art Institute in Kansas City had a phenomenal illustration program. Many of the teachers that were still there were world class, and their history with painting department, all their different departments were really well staffed and really capable, and it just seemed like a really great spot to settle down for a little while. So yeah, Kansas City was an easy spot for me to choose. I mean, I know you guys have been out here a while, but as someone who has now lived here 20 years, I got to say I could not have imagined staying as long as I had when I first moved here, as I do now. But I think it's a testament to the city itself. It really has grown a lot too in 20 years. It's a great place to call home, and man, the art community out here is incredible.
Yeah, I've only been here, I'm coming up on 2 years, but I can see myself staying a lot longer just because there are so many things going on and I've met so many incredible people. So it's great to hear that the art community has been so like welcoming and it's been a good place for you to continue growing in your career. I'm curious, what made you choose illustration of all the different art forms and art mediums? What made you go into that?
I've always been a technique guy. I really enjoy learning ways to trick materials into looking different than you would initially think them to look. And I found it was always good ways of making maybe a simple drawing look way better just by adding a couple glazes, a few smaller things that here and there that'll make the piece pop. If you learn those techniques, you can really kind of create whatever you want. And what I realized when I got into art school is that to learn that type of technique, you have to learn from technicians, and illustrators and designers are by nature technicians. Whereas the painting department was much more about your feelings, your emotions, how you connect with the piece, the conceptual time behind it, which, I don't want to discount, but for me, I needed the technical side to come first because I knew that if I could translate what I had in my mind, I could then focus on what I had in my mind and put it on paper.
That's awesome. I'm curious, what made you stay in Kansas City afterwards? Like, what jobs did you first find when you got out of school that allowed you to stay in the art industry?
Well, right out of college, a group of friends and I founded a studio together where we would all share space and work on freelance jobs here and there. And if a project came in that multiple people could work on, it would be an opportunity for something like that to happen. And that was really everybody doing stuff on the side. Everybody had kind of day jobs at the time. I was working in sales. I had done that through my time at school to pay, all the bills while I was doing that. But luckily I had met a friend who I went to the Art Institute with. We were in the same freshman class. And so we had been friends for the 4 years we were there. We were in the studio together. And she knew how quickly I was able to draw. And though I had never done fashion before, she was connected with a fashion designer who was in need of a fashion illustrator. They had to put out collections and do presentations for larger design houses and for retail spaces that were looking for new designers. He was really good at crafting the work, but he had no technical drawing skill whatsoever. We found a way to translate his sketches and his ideas into visual form with my illustration. And that was one of the first jobs I had working out of school. It was incredible. The fashion industry is absolutely insane. The people that work in it for any longer than a few years are prone to, I'm sure, all kinds of mental breakdowns, because I was after a few days, and it's just nuts. It was a really fun and taxing job. But yeah, I did that for about a year, and after working in that industry, I just kind of kept working in different kind of fashion spots here and there, doing t-shirt design, clothing and apparel production and design, working with a few companies here in town that tend to do that, which may seem odd, but the Midwest is a spot where you can get a lot of companies that work with coasts, or in the fashion industry, you'll end up working with production overseas. So a lot of times you'll be working with, production houses in Asia, and you can do that from anywhere, really.
So from there, I saw in your bio that you had an accident that changed the way you do your work. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I had spent several years working as an illustrator for a couple different companies, doing, as I had said, fashion illustration, and eventually I got into sign work, doing graphic work for commercial signage and things of that nature, where it was really fun work, but at some point it wasn't really the work that I was looking to put out. And I had built up enough freelance clients over the years that I finally decided it was time to jump into the world of freelance, take on illustration jobs that I enjoyed, design jobs that I really wanted to do, and kind of, see what it would be to take on my own career. It was a good time for me. A lot of things were changing, and I was, moving around, and life was shifting. After I quit my job about 2 weeks later, I was working for one of my freelance clients who happened to own a series of fireworks stands, and I was going to run one of his stands for a couple weeks. It was the July and in the summer of 2016, I believe. Exciting time to be alive, and there was an accident while we were setting up one of the tents. We were lifting 4,000-pound concrete block, and the metal edge of a bobcat decided to slam into the edge of that rock. My hand was in between the two, and the rock and the hard place didn't break, but my hand, unfortunately, was a little bit smashed up. It ended up requiring a plate and 9 pins in my right hand, which used to be my dominant hand, and it really, made me question what I was doing. I wasn't able to draw the way that I used to draw. I couldn't really hold any pencils or materials with my hand for quite some time, and I really had to think of a new way to make work. I never really considered not making artwork because it's just something that I've always done, and I just figured I would find a new way to do it. I had started working on a series of abstract paintings actually just before the accident, about a year or so before the accident, just personal work, things that I was dealing with on my own, and I really wanted to put into, large scale paintings that is very different from representational illustration work. It was more about mood and emotion rather than, much like in school, rather than the technical side. I really just wanted to get deep inside, figure out what was there, throw it up on the canvas, and see what would happen. So after the accident, I realized that one of the things I could still do was make marks. I couldn't make them as controlled as I used to, but with my left hand, I could control a little bit of what I was doing. And with practice, I would get, a little bit better at it. It was the exact same thing I had done with my right hand. A lot of people talk about artists as naturally talented people, or, with abilities that just come naturally. It's maybe the case, but not often the case. If you really want to learn how to draw, it is a technical skill that can be taught and learned. It's practice. You spend hundreds of hours doing thousands of drawings, piles of them in the corner, and then maybe you'll be happy with one. It's just kind of the way that it goes. And so I decided that after doing a lot of these large scale abstract works and finding galleries around town that would show the pieces and work with me to sell them, I decided that as much as I enjoyed that work, I really wanted to get back to representational work and being able to tell stories the way that I used to. So I decided to start drawing every day. I, just made a commitment to do a finished piece on paper every day. Usually just an ink drawing. Sometimes I would use gouache and color and do a finished, more of a painting. But either way, I decided that every day I was going to do a finished piece, because the repetition would help me get back to where I was comfortable creating, and I could, throughout that process, learn, how I could make art again. Now it's been about 3.5 years or so of the drawing every day, and I'm back to fully comfortable with my left hand. I'm now ambidextrous. I can throw things into this guy and push it around and make all kinds of marks with it. So yeah, it's very different and fun to make work again.
So one of the things I really love talking to you about, because we talked after I met you on a Zoom call with Kansas City Artist Coalition, which was phenomenal. And I love the passion you have for young artists, and the giving back. Can you tell us a little bit about what would you tell young artists today that are living in Kansas City? Any positive notes or anything to kind of, maybe a child is sitting at home, not really sure, is this what I should be doing? Or, is there something else that I should be working on? And especially about the illustration part, because a lot of kids love illustration, but there's not a lot of courses or things like that that kids can find out about or be a part of, at least not that I've seen here in Kansas City. And I know my son goes on YouTube and watches those illustrators out there, which are phenomenal, giving away their secrets for free, and just watching them every single day on YouTube is like insane, crazy, but they learn. And so, what would you tell a young artist that loves
Don't
that
let
work?
anyone stop you from learning. That's one of those things that you have total control over. You may not be able to take a class that you hear about or see about, or see online or hear about from a school. But if you would like to learn a thing, we now live in a world where that it's available to you. You can go online, go to YouTube. You can find artists who are doing all kinds of stuff. You can learn techniques. I mean, look, it may sound cheesy, but watching Bob Ross is one of the most calming and instructive things you can do. The guy actually, teaches. But you look at everyone out there who's doing stuff like that. Nowadays, there are options. So whatever you're into, whatever style you like, I'm sure you'll be able to find artists out there that do it. And if there's not somebody out doing something that you like, just do it yourself, because that's how you create, your own style. You just start making work.
And I love that you said that, because my son is, I'm going to talk about him because he's probably going to hate me for this, but he loves Mr. Cartoon. And he's like, I want to be like Mr. Cartoon when I get older. And I'm like, I would think that Mr. Cartoon would probably tell you, don't be Mr. Cartoon, be Aaron, because no one is like you. No matter if you follow through watching everything he does, your art will never be the same as his. So I feel like that's something I've been trying to tell him.
It's a good thing to say. It's hard to, as an artist, you find yourself comparing yourself to others almost all the time. You can do it with your contemporaries that you know. You can do it with people that you idolize, who you've looked up to since you were a kid. For me, I was big into comics, and I loved the artwork of comic books. I just thought it was the greatest thing that had ever happened. And you get older, you meet the people that you idolize, you realize that they are just artists on their journey as well. I'm friends with a lot of those people now. We talk. I've worked on their projects before. You'll meet people that you idolize eventually. And sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not. I mean, it is kind of what it is when it comes to humans. We are, in fact, all just humans. And as soon as you realize that all these artists started where you are starting, or perhaps far later than where you are, because if you're young and thinking about making art right now, you have a head start on most of the people out there. A lot of people don't start making art until they retire. They don't feel like they have time for it. They don't feel like they can commit to a thing. Allowing yourself to make the work that you want to make is difficult. It's not always the easiest thing to do when you feel like you want to make a thing and there isn't a place for it yet.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a question here in the comments, and this is a good one to kind of lead into what we were talking about. In your opinion, thank you, Jamie. In your opinion, what age is too old to attend art school?
I don't think there is an age that's too old to attend art school. I went to school with a lot of adults. It's also kind of the nature of art school or any kind of specialist school. There are reasons to go. Now, I would also say, you don't have to go to art school. There are absolute benefits to it, and there are, you know, the reasons that it could hold you back. It really just depends on what you want to do with your career. I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew that technically I had more to learn. So it was a really big part of why I went on to art school. Had I wanted to go into what I do now and just do fine art, which, boy, shouldn't I have just done that right out of high school? You know, I would have probably not attended art school because it would not have given me the direction that I would have needed. You know, I would have been looking for something else, I guess, maybe a studio space. And yeah, when it comes down to you wanting to attend art school, if you want to go because you've found a specific thing that you want to learn, do it. That's where you're going to find the right people to teach you. You don't have to sign up for a full 4 years. You can only take you could take a class here and there if you want. They do offer summer classes, and yeah. We can't hear you.
I was going to let you ask a question, Christina. Sorry. You're just waiting.
No, that's just fine. Yeah. So I was similar in that I knew what I wanted to do when I was younger. And since I'm a journalist, you know, I wrote for the school newspaper, started a school, you know, TV news thing, all that stuff. But how did you find, because you talked about before going to art school, finding other opportunities, places to learn and grow as an artist. How do people start that search if they're looking for, you know, they're doing the YouTube videos, they're doing whatever else, but they want a more guided, structured place to grow as an artist?
So I have a very odd and hugely beneficial background. My parents are phenomenal people. My mother was a concert pianist, and my father was an opera singer. So the two of them having that background after they went to school for the arts, they recognized early with me that I knew that I wanted to go into artwork. And it was really more a question of, well, what's the best way to get you there, and what do we need to do to help you to get to that place? I was pretty learning disabled growing up, and so I had to take a lot of classes to help me get up to the speed of all the rest of the students. But it was artwork that always helped me put all of that aside, and honestly probably had me not paying as much attention as I really should have. I knew that I wanted to draw pictures, and you know, teaching me math was not something that was at the top of my priority list. Much later on in life, I spent much more time working on numbers than I ever would have in school. But you know, then I started taking private lessons with local instructors. I found colleges that were doing weekend and evening classes. So the Maryland Institute College of Art was doing the very first Photoshop class. When Photoshop came out, I took that class. I took a marble sculpture class, figure drawing for my first time in 8th grade. That was a lot of fun. I mean, there are classes out there that you can find locally that perhaps a lot of larger institutions will put on, art schools. But then again, you can also find local instructors if you just look on Craigslist or see who's got a good website around who can take you kind of under their wing and teach you some things on the weekend.
You also mentioned scholarships as bringing you a lot of opportunities, opening a lot of doors. How did you find those scholarships to begin with?
So before I attended college, I attended a program in high school that was an art magnet program. All the students that attended this program with the intent to go on to college, part of it was portfolio preparation, scholarship application, and we would get visited by schools from around the country. It was where I first met a representative of the Art Institute, and when I first had the idea to come out to Kansas City. The scholarship opportunities that were available through that program, primarily they prep you for presidential scholarship, because winning presidential scholarship or getting you honorable mention in it will do wonders for your college application. It's a thing that most colleges recognize almost instantly, and it does, if not guarantee, it puts you at the top of the list for financial aid. The scholarship itself was a really good thing to show you, what you can get, a nice chunk of money and some representation, but what could also come along with something like that, which is more financial reward from the institutions that you're applying to. And, it really does open up all kinds of doors, especially for high school students who want to go out of state. Maybe they want to go to California. Maybe they want to go to New York. Maybe they want to go to the Kansas City Art Institute. Maybe they want to stay here in Kansas City. But wherever they want to go, overseas, here, you can almost guarantee that if you were to prep your portfolio, apply to the right scholarships, it will eventually snowball into multiple opportunities for scholarship and perhaps opportunities from the institution to offer you a scholarship to attend.
So from there, you talked about getting to a point where you had built up your freelance work, like your client base, to a point where you felt like you could kind of go out on your own.
Mm-hmm.
How do you start that process of getting people interested in your work and being able to make a living off of it?
Well, I guess I've always been able to make a living off of my work. I think a lot of high school students who make art could relate to the idea that if you're the one that makes art, you're the friend that makes art, then everybody's going to want you to draw their new sneakers. Everybody's going to want you to draw that car that they want. Everyone's going to want you to draw a thing. It just kind of becomes what you're used to doing. Eventually, if you feel like you're pretty good at it, you might be able to get a couple bucks for it. And then, hey, maybe you'll get a little bit better. You'll put it up on a wall and you'll be able to sell it to somebody you don't know. It really does start like that. It's a weird, small and very natural progression for artists to become salesmen of their own work. Nowadays, when it comes to social media, there are days where I'll post a piece and I'll get messaged within, a few minutes about it. And, someone who I know or a collector online will have seen it and they'll, look to pick it up right away. Those are great days. It really is just about finding the audience for it. And when it comes to building up your own client base, I had worked with tons of clients through my career, working in fashion, working in signage design, and having done jobs for, tons of people throughout this whole thing. A lot of them will over time call you again. And after you leave a certain place, they may call you because you've worked so well together. Over the years, it's just kind of a thing you build up. And if you like doing that type of work that you've been doing, it's a good thing to take you over. For me, it was more about that type of work could help me push forward while I figured out the type of work that I wanted to do.
Okay, you have to tell us now the picture, the beautiful artwork you have behind you, and explain to us a little bit, because you're hiding the beautiful piece of it. We see around it, but definitely want you to talk about it. Wow. I've been keeping up with you on social media, and your work is just phenomenal, just beautiful work. And can you tell us, the inspiration for this and what it's called and how you came up with it?
So this is a painting for a show that I have coming up called Who We Are to Each Other. at the end. And the show really deals with empathy and the way that we see each other as human beings, and the frailty of life, and how we tell each other stories at the end of it. This is the largest piece. It's a 60 by 60. Most of the pieces for the show are works on paper, things that I had done for my daily drawing series. And I really wanted to take some of those smaller studies, some of those works on paper, and really blow them up real big. And, you know, working on canvases like this give me the opportunity to throw a lot of paint around. Yeah, the show is going to be delayed a little bit due to COVID. I don't know if you guys have heard about this thing that might be stopping us from going outside or seeing our fellow human beings anytime soon. But yeah, we're going to be not having a public reception with lots of people looking at art on the walls and getting close to each other and high-fiving and, you know, licking each other's faces or whatever we do at art openings. I mean, this is just kind of the way it is.
That's always what happens.
I apologize for my dog. He needs to be in the room with me, but he's very interested in the artwork.
I love it. Yeah, I know, obviously. And he is, what's his name?
His name is Copper. He's
Oh.
4 years old this July.
Oh, I love
Copper is
co-host.
very welcome. Yeah.
Yes. I love that he's giving you his paw.
Yes, that's his sign of affection. That means he wants attention.
Well, he's got lots of people watching him. I'm sure he'll probably be the star of the show. Sorry, Taj.
Hey, listen, the real stars here, I understand.
I'm curious what inspires your artwork, Taj. Like, where do you draw inspiration from? Is it from everywhere? Do you have specific influences?
You know, I do. I have tons of influences, but I mean, that's just, I have a huge love of art. I grew up going to museums around the Smithsonian, the National Gallery, and the Hirshhorn were local for me. And then moving to Kansas City, the museums here are top of the line, world class museums where you can go and look at artwork, you know, 2 feet away that's just going to blow your mind. And then you get around to a lot of the local galleries and frame shops, and you start to see, you know, the art that exists outside of the world of the museum. You see a lot more contemporary stuff. You might see work from people that you've never heard of or would never see anywhere else. It's a very cool city, and I'm constantly inspired by the artists around. When it comes to my own work, I think the style that I've kind of found my way into comes from a combination of the daily drawing repetitive nature and trying to get back to a level of technical skill that I had at one point. Some way along this journey, I was trying to hide mistakes that came from just the natural twitches in your non-dominant hand, the things that you're just not used to, things that are going to just take a while for you to get over. I realized I was layering pieces and creating pieces using different materials just to kind of hide those little things that had come up, and, you know, in the end will help enhance the piece. But for me, I had, you know, spent so long looking at what a piece should look like and then making it look like that, versus now I have an idea of what a piece should look like, and I might make it look like that, or it might come out some weird way, and we'll see. The whole process was very different because I think when I was a lot younger, I always wanted to have a style. I wanted to have a recognizable thing that I could do. Recently, it really has just been allowing myself to naturally create, and that process has been very rewarding.
That, I mean, all of that is just so phenomenal to hear. And I think especially for the younger artists, because I think sometimes you might think you have to be a certain something in order to make it. And I love that you said that. And just the openness of just being who you are and just loving what you create, I think is just such a phenomenal statement to say.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's also very difficult if you're talking about loving what you make. A lot of artists will realize that a lot of times you don't. In the process of creating, what the world sees and what you see are very, very different. And it can be confusing a lot of times for younger artists to get encouragement for certain pieces that they may not relate to, but for some reason they made and other people respond to. They may get negative reactions to pieces that they feel strongly about, that they feel represents them well. In the end, that is something that you're going to have to learn to filter on your own, because no one's going to be able to tell you what you like or what you feel you're doing that is benefiting your work. You can get a lot of good advice from instructors. You can get a lot of technical instruction from people, but in the end, it's going to be down to you and your judgment to make the piece yours.
I'm curious how you do that, like how you stay true to your own voice, because at the end of the day, it's your work. You want to put your mark on it. How do you kind of zone in on what you want to do and create that without letting outside stuff get in your head and make it hard to create what you want to create?
I think for me, the repetition helped quite a bit, because within the requirement of a daily piece, within the requirement of a work on paper, within the restrictions that I gave myself, I had to constantly keep churning out more work. And one of the things that happens over time when you are just continuously creating is that you will push your work into a comfort zone that you don't even know is there. I wasn't sure how much I would really enjoy using gouache and ink and work on paper. I was primarily a acrylic or oil painter, large canvases, things of that nature. But when I really eliminated a lot of the outside factors and just started to create the work that I wanted to create, and to create a lot of it, there becomes almost no time for you to embellish beyond what you naturally feel is enough. And after creating all the pieces, I couldn't tell you a specific time or even a specific piece. There were some that I felt like I was getting there, and then I'd have a few days of just, man, this is awful, and I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I've never learned how to draw. I should set it all on fire and we'll start all over again. But after you get past that, you then take a look at what you've done and you say, all right, well, I see the way that I do things that I wasn't consciously doing. I didn't make these marks thinking ahead of time, I'm going to make the marks that look like this. I just made the marks because it was eventually what I naturally was prone to do. And I think that just comes out of practice and repetition, and people who have very distinct and unique styles that feel like them, and that you could see them do a large painting, a small piece on paper, or a sculpture, and you would always just say, that's them. That's exactly who they are, and it captures their style perfectly. That just comes from time and repetition. So just make a million things and then make a million more, and you might be at the beginning.
I have a question in regards to Kansas City. So, being an artist in Kansas City, what are you hoping for the future here in Kansas City in regards to artists? And that can mean anything in any way. But what do you hope to see for the artists here in Kansas City?
I'd love it if we could open up one day. That'd be nice. And that is
Yeah, that's for everybody. Yes.
completely out of the hands of Kansas City. I am not crying to open things up early. I do look forward to seeing people again. I think Kansas City has a lot of very interesting art communities, and the overall large Kansas City art community is its thing. And then the cliquey nature of individual spots always pop up. It's the nature of any kind of group or scene or anything. I think what I would love to see in Kansas City is more support for younger artists looking to go out into the world, either here or anywhere else, and actually get the training that they deserve. Because one of the things that I was very used to by the time that I got to college that other people were not is critique. And critique is vital for artists. It tells you, at the very least, what other people think about your work, and at most, it can inform what you think about your work. If all you take from it is other people's opinions and it doesn't change the way that you make your work, that doesn't necessarily mean that your work needed to change in the first place. But if you get out of a critique and you then see changes in your work that you need to make, you're so far ahead of where you were just, an hour before that, or whenever you had the critique or whatever it is. That will push you forward in your career. And the more opportunities students have for that type of environment, I think the better equipped they will be to just be people, let alone artists.
So from that, I'm curious, what would you tell someone who loves making and creating things, but doesn't know whether they want to make a career out of it? How do you distinguish between like a hobby and a side passion and something that you want to do for work?
Well, you'll be much happier. That is certainly one thing. And I will say this, artists as full-time and I love art. I love all the different jobs I've had creating art, but I'm a much more flexible person than a lot of the artists that I've interacted with. A lot of artists I know, they like to make the work that they make, and they don't really want to change for other people. And that doesn't really work when you're working for or with others. So it might just be something that you make on your own. Maybe you have a show every once in a while. Maybe you don't. Maybe you just post it online. There's no real consequence to making artwork on your own. There is no, reason not to. That I think becomes the thing for me. If you're a hobbyist, or if you like to create artwork, but you're like, well, why would I create it if it's not for my career? Well, you can do it for your sanity. It's a lot of the reason why we do this for our career. A lot of times you have to make the work that you have inside. A lot of times artists have to get that out because it's the only way they have to communicate those ideas. It's the only way that they know to communicate those ideas. Art becomes a language for them to express those things. Now, you don't have to have a career. You just have to have a need to get those things out. So if you have a need to get those things out, then get them out.
I have a dog barking, so I'm like, okay, I'm trying to make sure I know. Mine's younger and like always trying to do this when I'm on the mic. I love that. I love that answer. I think that is just exactly the perfect statement, especially for young artists. Tell us, okay, first of all, is that painting behind you for sale?
It will be. Once I get the show up and once we have it in a public space, it will be going up for sale.
And do you have your art available through your website, which I put on here? Is that where they would go in order to find artwork?
Yeah, you can find my work on my website. You can contact me on social media if you go to Instagram. I'm always really quick to respond. Yeah, Instagram, Facebook, all those places that people go and yell at each other.
Exactly. Christina, do you have any last questions for Taj?
I guess my last question would be, if there is an aspiring artist watching or listening, what do you want them to know? What is your cheer for them to say, yes, you can do it?
The positive part of that is important because there are plenty of other messages, but I'll stick with the positive ones. The positive ones are that even though you are competing with everyone else on the planet, you're just competing with everybody else on the planet. It's not that big a deal. Everybody else is doing it, and you're going to be the only person that pushes you further in your work. Other people can encourage you to do so. Other people can give you advice or instruction, but you're the person that's going to take that advice. You're the person that's going to make the decision to implement that advice. And you're the person that's going to practically put pen to paper and make what you want. So, leave the excuses at home because it's just you. And so that's a really good thing and a really sobering thing.
A really sobering thing for sure. I think you take that advice for all things. And that's a really good way to see it, that you're not the only one doing this. There's millions of other people doing it in all different aspects, in all different ways in the world. And so, yeah, it does kind of almost make it feel less lonely in a way, the way you said that.
And I think that's the other thing. When I think about what's important for young artists now, and I mean, 2020 is going to be a very formidable time for you to form some ideas and create work. The world is right now showing you the need for artists. In this time when we're all separate and everybody is thinking about what really matters, a lot of the time you're listening to, or you're reading books, you're watching shows, you're hearing stories be told, and that's art. We're storytellers, and now is a good time to tell stories, and now is a good time to figure out what stories need to be told because you have the time to do it. Colleges and scholarship applications may be delayed and suspended right now all over the place, but that doesn't mean you should stop looking because there might be things that hold you back. A $35 application fee can be a problem, but in the end, if you set yourself up with a good portfolio and you learn how to edit that portfolio down to what you need, there will be places that can help you apply. There are places that will help you take your work to where it needs to go.
I added some of the scholarship information you gave to me on the chats. And I'm so looking forward to the conversations you're going to have with the mentees in regards to the portfolio and what you need to do. Because like you said, that is such a needed part of it that you don't even probably think in regards to finding the right art colleges is also this other piece of it. And a lot of us that don't know, like myself, never went into art school, and my kids are thinking about it. You don't know what tools to give them in order to succeed, to get into the school they want.
Yeah. And, I think it can feel, especially for parents as well, who don't come from that type of background, it can be daunting because you want your kids to have the best opportunities, but it's hard when you don't know how to give those opportunities to them. Yeah, aside from message me, which go ahead, I'm always open for advice, but there are people in town who are amazing at mentoring kids, or even just working within the community to help students create artwork outside in public. I mean, it's out there, it's available, and it really just takes a little bit of looking.
Thank you so much, Taj. We loved having you here. Loved talking about your artistry, how you overcame, the accident that you had, and then still look at the picture behind you alone and the amazing artwork. Just phenomenal work. I mean, and thank you, Christina, for being here and asking such amazing questions as you always do and being a part of it. And we love seeing your copper.
Yes, I think that's Copper is going to be more popular than I am, but hopefully it doesn't take away from Taj and the incredible stories you shared. And I think that's a great, note to end on when you said that artists are storytellers, and that's what we need, especially right now.
Yes, absolutely agree. Thank you so much, Taj, for your time today. Everybody check out his website. It's down here in the comments. I'm going to put it on the chat, and all the amazing resources that he provided in regards to scholarships and just finding out anything you need in regards to the art scholarship. So we'll be talking to Taj again soon, and we can't wait for your programs to start. Thank you so much, everybody watching, and thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you, guys. It was a real pleasure. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks.